As a survivor of sexual assault, I realized after my perpetrator was locked up, I started reading the news again and watching TV, and I saw he's not the only one. This is happening every day. And what I decided to do was to go out and I made a list of safety tips on my own, and I just started going out to preschools, daycares, churches, temples, trying to warn people of the dangers of sexual assault in the community. And I started having people who were saying, we don't talk about sexual assault very much. There's a lot in the area that I live in, there was a lot of domestic violence training, but there wasn't a lot of people that were willing to talk about sexual assault. So my first piece of advice is we need to create empowered survivors, because a survivor voice is very powerful when you're sitting down with somebody whose only experience with sexual assault is what they see on TV. To see somebody in the flesh and blood that this has happened to, and really the havoc that it wreaks on somebody's life, I think changes their perceptions. And also, I can't say enough about the power of people writing to their congressman. I worked for years and years on Capitol Hill to pass the SAFER Act, Sexual Assault Forensic Evidence Reporting Act, and to help pass a law that just took effect in my home state of Florida on July 1st to help eliminate the backlog. And it was all about getting people involved, people I knew. Please write your congressman. Please explain to them that funding is the biggest hurdle in getting these kits tested. In addition to that, is educating people on what is the backlog. I think that most people I talk to think the backlog is that there are 13,000 kits in line in the labs in Florida, and we just don't have enough analysts to process them. Whereas we do need more analysts for the onslaught of DNA that is coming their way. People don't realize that when a kit goes to law enforcement, that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be tested. I watched firsthand at the hospital the nurse hand the box, the kit, to the police officer. Did not dawn on me for 1 second that that kit would not be tested. And I think to all those women and men who've had kits done and just assumed it went on to the lab, we need to educate people and let them know there's discretion between the hospital and the testing. There's a lot of things that happen in between, and those kits can get lost. They can be dismissed because a prosecutor doesn't think there's enough evidence, or a police officer doesn't think there's enough to go forward. And it's to educate people what the backlog is and get people outraged enough that they write their congressman and that they start getting involved in their communities, educating other people. My rapist ended up being a date rapist also. After my trial, a woman reached out to me and said that in the state of Virginia, he had raped her. She went for a rape kit, but because it was an acquaintance situation, they never tested it. Because why test it if you know whose DNA is in the box? Well, what happened is that date rapist didn't stay a date rapist. He went on to spousally rape 2 of his wives, and then he started abducting people off the streets. And people need to realize sexual predators don't just come in 2 varieties, stranger and acquaintance rapists. They vacillate between the 2. They're sexual predators. Every kit counts. And I think educating people and victims educating people, going out there and saying every kit matters. I'm one person. The state of Florida had 13,462 kits in backlog. That's 13,462 people just like me who deserve justice. And it shouldn't matter where you live, whether you live in Birmingham, Detroit, LA, Miami, everybody deserves the same standard of care when it comes to sexual assault. So it's everybody's issue.